Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the satisfaction session. Satisfaction is a green tea from Yunnan Province. By the end of today's session, we'll have talked about some of the characteristics of green tea, we'll have evaluated and compared satisfaction with tapestry and green light. You'll have a better understanding because going through these three T's, this gives you a different sense of range of possibilities. So those things are promised for today's session. So let's start off with this week's news. We got interviewed on Thursday, and that interview will probably be available in about 4 weeks, and I'll post it once it is. It's the American Dream channel. I don't really know anything much about it. I think it's more of an advertisement type of piece, but it was really about the shop. It was about the shop in relationship to Montclair and the East Bay. So I'll give you more information about that as we get more information, but it was fun. Secondly, you may remember 2 weeks ago, Jonathan asked the question about the relationship between amino acids and viscosity. So it's taken me a couple weeks to run this down, and I knew it would take me some time. But the surprising answer to this question, and I should have known it right away because it was in the back of my mind, but I couldn't bring it forth until I went through the research that I did. What really most impacts viscosity of tea is amount of pectin in the tea. It's not the amino acids. And so, I'm on this fruitless search because I knew I had information about this, looking through the amino acids, not finding, and then suddenly finding it in relationship to pectin. So that's the right answer for that. Nonetheless, was this search useful? It was useful for all of you because you got a chart this morning. For those of you who haven't looked at your emails yet, I did send you an email about 45 minutes ago. And this email is a description of the various apparent health benefits that you gain by consuming L-theanine. And this was a meta study, and it was done by Chinese scientists and an Indian scientist. And I really liked it for its completeness in terms of all the ground that they covered about L-theanine. One of the things that they said, which is a little bit different than what you're used to hearing, was the amount of L-theanine is slightly higher in green tea. However, in the body of the article, they did reference back L-theanine of silver needle in particular, and the implication that that being the highest. So I still stand by that as the highest source of L-theanine. But the number of things that L-theanine seems to affect from all parts of the body is phenomenal. And when you look at that chart, you suddenly realize, oh my gosh, I better be drinking more tea. So remembering that L-theanine occurs really in two plants. One is the tea plant and the other is in the mushroom, something like Badius boletus or something like that. At any rate, this is an important compound, particularly good for anti-inflammatory. So if you're consuming inadvertently toxins, cancerous toxins, for example, apparently L-theanine is very good, both in terms of being anti-inflammatory and anti-tumor forming. So It's good for the cardiovascular system, or they've found many benefits of it in the cardiovascular system, for the kidneys, for the livers. I mean, this thing is out of this world good. And I just didn't even realize the reach of the potential health benefits. So that's why I shared it with you, because I was so impressed by the information that has come out. And again, this was a big meta study, so you covered many, many areas in this study. One other thing that's really, actually two other things that are important from this week at the shop. And, you know, I have to go back to Jonathan on this one also, because Jonathan is extremely thoughtful when it comes to asking questions and trying to make subtle differentiations. And so in a discussion about Cliff teas, yes, I know we're doing green tea today, but this is still pertinent. In a discussion about Cliff tea, Jonathan asked me the following. He said, okay, I'm going to go to tea shops occasionally doing research for you. Of course, I would never go to another tea shop except this one, but doing research for us here at Sophie's, he's got license, carte blanche, to go to the other tea shops and do research. And he said, I get it now. When I go in, based on the sessions we've had week after week after week, if I can describe flavor attributes, aroma attributes, because the names of tea are so confusing, and you have localized names, you have names in China that are pertinent to villages, you have names that are pertinent to legends, you have names that are pertinent to numbers. It's a mess. But what's not a mess are what you detect in the tea. So his question really was, if I'm trying to find a tea that's similar to something here, shouldn't I be able to go in and use these attributes? And if the tea shop is any good, they'll know right away, oh, you're referring to this. And they'll be able to pick the equivalent off the shelf. And the answer is absolutely yes. So with any style of tea, including green tea, especially green tea, because green tea, before we started these sessions, and I mean long before we started these sessions, most people's sense of green tea, oh, a little bit bitter, it's got some freshness to it. And that was about the limit. Occasionally you get a little hint of nuttiness in some of the descriptions, but that was about the limit of the descriptions that everybody was using. Now, who in the world can help you, outside of Sophie's that is, with those sort of descriptions? We already ask you other sorts of subtle questions to try and illuminate, but most tea shop owners may not have that set of other questions. So this is not only relevant from Jonathan's angle, it's relevant. I've told you about this restaurant owner he's a chef, he's got an incredible palate. It's relevant also from his perspective, because it's the ability to go and give 4 adjectives and then have a tea shop owner, oh, I know what you're talking about. Point, here's the answer. And so with green tea, there's subtleties, right? And in those subtleties, if you're able to identify these main areas, so freshness, or umami, or grassiness, or nuttiness, or chestnut. I mean, there's lots of things, really, when we talk about green tea that we can say. And as you say those things, you edge people closer, especially if you're in your shop trying to find that flavor. You edge them closer to being able to get that flavor for you. So this is why going through these sessions is so darn important, because you're ending up with a skill set where, again, you can go to China and go in a tea shop and say the things we're saying. And they'll say, oh, I know what you mean. Let me give you this. This isn't exactly, but it's close. And you'll be able to get that. And so I was really reminded of that as we were going through this set of teas, because there are subtleties in these teas, and yet there's obviousness in these teas. The other aspect of these teas is so many of them are locally named, that you would never be able to use any name and get that same tea. It's not like Dragon. Dragon Well is internationally known. You say Dragon Well, everybody knows what you mean. But these things, you say the name of this tea that we're going to have today, even if you say it in Chinese, you're not going to get much of a reaction because it's so local. But when we're finished today and you talk about the attributes of this tea, you'll get a reaction in a tea shop in China at any rate. The last thing before we actually get satisfaction today is something else which has come up in the last 3 or 4 weeks. And I realize as I'm hearing it in several different forms that I want to address it. So on both sides of the Pacific, there are misunderstandings about the other side. And part of this is driven by the internet, because you have claims on the internet and you have claims about one side and the other side. And yet, when the reality is met, it's not that way. And we know this because we live on both sides of the Pacific. We travel and are well versed in both sides of the Pacific. So when you're talking about, oh, I think I can get whatever it is in America from China, and then you come here and you find, well, wait a minute, that's not quite how it was described. That's not what I thought. Should you be surprised? And the answer is no. If you had asked us, we would have told you. And it goes the other way as well. If you think you can get a certain thing in China and you think you understand, I guarantee you, the chances of it matching up to what you think you understand are slim or none. It boils down to that. We see this when people sometimes bring us teas. So we had a recent encounter. Somebody brought us a tea and we looked at it and we knew instantly, as soon as I read deeply into the label of this tea, that it wasn't what the person was hoping for. Person was hoping for, oh, I got something really special. The color of the packaging is really red. Doesn't that mean good luck? And doesn't that mean truth and honesty? No, linen means truth and honesty, not the color red. The color red is out there for good luck. And maybe you have good luck and maybe you don't. So the whole issue is, it's good that you bring us stuff to look at. We'll always be gentle and very careful as we evaluate it. But be assured, rest assured that we will, at the end of the day, tell you this is market tea, if it's market tea, period. One last example. I'll get off of this platform and then you'll get satisfaction. So recently, we got a tea from Japan. And it was offered up as an example of something that might be really good. And so, you know us. Do we believe anything by its packaging? Do we look at a book and evaluate the cover of a book and evaluate the whole book by its cover? Well, again, when we're with you, we're nice and gentle. Wow, what a pretty cover. Oh, a lot of pages in this book. This might be good. And then we go back and do research. So on this particular tea, one of the things we found out just last night, because we sent a picture, this tea is sold in 7-Eleven in Japan. So I ask you this. Would you purchase any product in 7-Eleven and expect it to be a high quality product? And that's for you to answer. I'm not sure I know the answer. I'm just asking the question. So let's go get some satisfaction. Let's talk about satisfaction. Satisfaction comes from Yunnan Province. Oh, wait a minute. Didn't you say this was a green tea? Didn't I say this was a green tea? Yunnan Province, pre-1938, produced quite a lot of green tea. Green tea, raw black, fully fermented black, were produced all in relative quantities in Yunnan Province. Post 1938, you add red to that because the people from Anhui, you may remember, because of historic circumstances, came to Yunnan, founded red tea factories in Fengcheng, and the rest is history. You get great red tea. But you've always gotten some green tea from Yunnan. So I'm not going to characterize what the base characteristics are. You ought to already have some sense of that, just based on what you understand about raw black and fully fermented teas. So this tea comes from a place called Lincang, Lincang. Lincang, we've talked about before. This region actually produces many, many good fermented teas and raw blacks. It produces some red teas and it produces green teas. This region, when you think about it, it actually, as you move to the west, includes a lot of regions with relatively famous tea mountains. And most of these tea mountains you've not heard of, or if you've heard of them, you've heard of them because they're good tourist destinations, not because they're producing great tea. So Snow Mountain, very famous tourist destination. It's on that tourist loop in Yunnan. And every Western tourist, and actually every Chinese tourist, takes that bus, goes to Snow Mountain. You can buy or rent oxygen and climb up the mountain at a certain point. A lot of fun. Been there, done that. Not realizing that that area has lots of primal tea forests. Very little of what's picked there leaves the area. So you almost don't hear about it. Now, the places you do hear about, which are in the same relative area, are a place called Bingdao. And I've talked about Bingdao because there's a sad story associated with that. People built a village too close to the ancient trees, old and ancient trees, trees start to die because runoff, pollution into the forest created unfavorable circumstances for further growth. There are other places as you move west, and this is all in relationship to lean some, where famous tea grows. But again, so little of it is harvested and let outside that you're just not aware of. This area is in Chinese tea circles enormously famous. And this is where satisfaction comes from. And this is why it took us but a nanosecond once we realized we had access to this to, oh, yeah, we'll take that. Even though it's green tea, we'll take that. No problem. So in green tea, what are the basic principles? You got to pick, you got to decide, am I going to be bud only, a bud and a leaf, bud and a couple leaves? Where do I want to be? What season do I want to pick? Spring, summer, or autumn? Now, if you're going to get your L-theanine in a high dose, you better not be picking in the summer or autumn. Spring. And what part of the spring? Should you pick in late spring or early spring? On the same seasonal theme, let's pick in early spring. From a flavor perspective, after you pick, what's next most important? It's how you control how you're going to denature the oxidation enzyme. What does that mean? How you're going to control? Well, it means what temperature, what style are you going to use to denature? How many styles are there? There are 3 styles. One is you can use the old-fashioned. And I say this in a jocular way as I think about it, because it's not the old-fashioned. Let's step back. The oldest fashion, the original way that this was always done was steaming, right? And that was popular all the way up until about 900 AD. And then because palate change and palate preference distinction, and farmers got better with handling using direct heat in a wok, it became fried. So in Japan, it's steamed. And is it steamed for hours and hours? No, you destroy it. It's steamed for actually a minute or 2 or 3, not a long time, a short time. So you're killing bacteria and you're denaturing the enzyme, the oxidation enzyme when you steam. So that's the true old-fashioned way. I was starting down another road and I realized, oh, wait a minute, there's a detour here. I better go the right way. So the detour was away from the fried, because in China, today, we say that's the old-fashioned way, but it really isn't, because they did steaming first. And the fried came later, 900 AD or so. When you fry, extremely high temperature, and you do it by hand usually, and you have to have the skill that you don't over dry it, or even worse, you don't charcoalize it. Charcoalize a word, but you understand what I mean. And oh, yeah, it's pretty important that you don't burn your hand either. So because you don't want hand residue in the tea itself. So all 3 things are important. So the farmers have to have experience. You and I can't just say one morning, hey, you know, I'm growing that tea plant outside. I'm gonna make green tea. I'm gonna use high heat. I'll get that wok all real hot. And I'm gonna put those tea leaves in there. I've seen them stirred on YouTube. You just stir it with your hand and you know you're done essentially. Answer is not. You're not done. And what are you using to control? You're using your nose to control. So if you don't have experience, is your nose useful at all? Well, it's useful to say, oh my gosh, that smells smoky. I don't remember my green tea being smoky before. This is probably an error. So it's useful in that way, but it's not useful in the way that the Chinese farmer does it, because they're using their hand and their subtleties. Remember, Bijou and I have been in hundreds of these villages where they're frying. So we've had that experience of smelling just right. And just right. It's like when you cook your favorite dish, whatever it is. Let's exclude barbecue dishes. Your favorite non-barbecue dish. You get to a point and that smell is, oh my God, we're there. Point, you stop. Or the smell and the color. Oh, that color of the kale is just green in such a way that it's almost irradiating the room in greenness. Stop right there. It's the same way as you're frying tea leaves. When you fry tea leaves, you get to that point, and the farmers know, stop right there. Okay, so that's way number 2. These years, another way has crept in. You know, I love modernization sometimes. So this modernization technique is, you know what? I'm tired of using my hand in this dangerous way. Why don't I just use an oven? I can put an oven, I can dry it, I can denature the enzyme. And they have these things that look like cement mixers, those type of ovens. They got that heat going 400 or 500 degrees onto this rotating cylinder, throw the tea in there, and they're waiting for the smell. Okay, right there, dump it out, and that's that. Is there an advantage to any of these systems? And the answer is, it's stylistic, isn't it? If you like the grassiness of Japanese green tea, then you call that an advantage that they steam. If you like the fullness of the wok fried tea, you call that an advantage. And if you like what flavor is usually, you know, in the cement mixer style, you do get a slightly different flavor that isn't as well controlled, I think, as the wok. Because first off, in the wok, they're doing it in smaller batches. So there's a uniformity. In the cement mixer, it's bigger batches. So it's batch after batch. There is some difference, and therefore it's a little bit harder. The best of those operators do a great job and make it near uniform, but it's really hard to do. It seems easier, right? I don't have to do anything. I just throw it in there. My hand is protected. All I have to do is rely on my nose. Seems easier. It's really actually harder to get it uniform batch by batch, but those are your choices. By and large, in Linsong, it's the second choice. That is using hand fried, old fashioned. So that's what you get today with satisfaction. All right, I've talked way too much. It's already 10 o'clock. No wonder the tea master was over there waving her hand and trying to catch my attention, because she's thirsty. Which means if she's thirsty, it's very likely that you're thirsty. So it is my great pleasure to bring the red colored, good luck looking Tea Master Bijou out.
Good morning，早上好。Yeah, we do green tea 和云南 green tea. So,
So you see her tableau is set up as usual, cups, tea toys, and a strainer. The only thing you have to have is the 2 cups and the strainer. It's fun to have all the other things. And because we're gonna make multiple cups, we must have more cups there, but you just need 2 cups. And ours are 16-ounce cup. So you recognize this tableau. And so the tea master is gonna draw the water. And what she's gonna do is she's gonna use 200-degree water. You can use any temperature between 170 and 212. And this is really to heat the glasses and make sure that they're absolutely clean and there's nothing at all influencing the flavor. Remember, green tea is very subtle. So you wanna make sure these glasses are absolutely without any influencers. Just watch her rhythm. And while you're watching her rhythm, you can make a judgment also about what I said when I introduced the tea master. I said she was wearing good luck red. But in fact, as I look more closely, this looks like salmon to me. All right, so the tea master is now going to draw the 175-degree water. And this she's going to dissipate. And I don't know where you are, but here it's actually raining outside. I just noticed it's actually raining hard outside. I'm very surprised. This is August, isn't it? It is August. Wow, that means it's probably snowing in the Sierras. Oops, that's a digression. Not supposed to have too many of those. All right, so she's using 175-degree water. She's going to dissipate the steam. Remember, our objective is to get down to about 170. We're going to air lower. We're not going to air higher. You know, so there's just a rhythm, a steadiness to what Bijou does. It's not in a hurry. It's just practice like, gosh, I do this every day. Oh, she actually does do this every day. Puts the water back into the kettle because it's got a nice spout. Takes satisfaction and puts it in a cup. Shakes the cup, heats leaves, smells it to make sure she's satisfied. And then adds the water. And it's a 3-minute steep. And if you take a look at this, almost all the leaves sank to the bottom. Very beautiful. It's like a kelp forest at the bottom of the water here. It's just a beautiful, beautiful appearance. So in addition to picking, frying, what else do you have to do? You roll it or shape it a little bit. You don't shape it a lot, but you shape it a little bit. And then at the end, you actually bake it. Why? because what you're trying to do is reduce the moisture level down to 3 to 4%. And why do you want to do that again? As a producer, if you have too much water in any tea, what happens? It molds. All right. So we have, what do we have? We have a minute and a half left. So let me tell you a little bit of something else with this as well. So these are larger leafed trees, and they're small trees, and they're outside of the city of Linsan. So you go about 30 miles outside of the city. So it's not just straight outside. You have to do a trek to get to this farm. And it's in the mountains. It's about 4,000 feet above sea level. So it's in that sweet spot. The weather there is, it gets about 60 or 70 inches of rain a year. So again, you're in that sweet spot, and the water drainage is really, really good there. So the actual pH of the soil is about 5.7. It's again in a perfect range for good tea to grow. And the farmer's been doing this as green tea. He's in a lineage of farmers who've been doing this as green tea. And I believe he's 6th or 7th generation who's been working this farm. So that gives you some of the terroir details. This area overall, once you get outside of the city, no factories, or it's only tea factories essentially. And so the air is good, the environment is great, yes.
Do tea plants like to have in general just very stable temperatures, or do they like to have a little shock of cold, not freezing, but at some point in the year, is there not a norm to the temperatures tea plants prefer?
Great question. So there's a question about what do tea plants like in terms of range of temperatures? And it really depends where they are, because there's so many factors. If there's a lot of fog occurring, so what defines a lot of fog? If say 100+ days of fog a year, then they can easily withstand freezing temperatures for a short time. And they like that, and that produces a certain flavor profile. The one thing they don't like for sure is hot and dry. Hot and dry doesn't work. Wet and hot works fine. So that's kind of a range of what they prefer. All right, so you take a look at this, you can tell there's actually tea in it. The color is greenish. Looks pretty. Let's enter the quality arena for this tea. And remember, when we're entering, we're looking to determine where the aridness or the the dryness is on the tongue. We want to catch what sort of aftertaste there is and how does it make us feel. And so the first time around, it's about that. The second time around, it's more about the aroma of the tea itself and the taste of the tea itself. So let's go ahead and enter. You don't enter, I'm entering. And get out your notes from Green Light and Tapestry. So the first thing I'm going to say with great authority, yes, I have dryness on my tongue. Oh, I have an aftertaste. And my goodness, this is different than Tapestry and Green Light. Very obviously. So there's some things about this tea as you're going through this process that I hope you can identify and think about relevant to Yunnan. Because right away, there's something about this tea which makes me believe, wow, this style of flavor probably nearly always indicates Yunnan. So it's your turn to brew.
A little feedback from participant already. Kathleen says, in my first sip, I detected a fruity, almost tangerine crispness.
Fruity tangerine crispness was indicated, who made this comment?
Kathleen.
Kathy, great comment. Yes,
Thanks, Peter. Peter says the email me in 2 minutes and then 1 minute. And thanks for pointing that out, Peter. I'll go back and take a look at the email that I believe that I have seen. We're double checking also another source of information.
Susan has sent them. One email shows what did my email say?
Email.
What-
Oh, we're double checking on the email right now.
Okay. Usually the email is the authority. 2 minutes. Okay,
3 minutes and 2 minutes.
email says 3 minutes and 2 minutes,
First
okay?
brew 3 minutes.
Correct.
Second brew 2 minutes.
Yes. That would be right.
Oh, and Peter shared back, he says, my bad, he was looking at the tapestry there. That's okay. It's exciting, Peter, when you test us when we haven't had enough caffeine yet. And we do make mistakes, so thank you very much.
Who's the we?
I make
Oh,
mistakes.
wait a minute,
so
I
thank you
make
very
mistakes.
much.
I make mistakes, yes. Understudy does make mistakes. Thank you.
3 minutes. Second 2 minutes.
3 minutes and 2 minutes, yes. Okay, so you're getting your cups ready. The tea master is drawing 175-degree water. She's making sure that all the cups have no residue of anything, dissipating the steam. Nice rhythm. And the water goes back in the kettle, so Bijou can control the pour into the cups. She takes the tea leaves, puts them in the heated cup, shakes, smells, and adds water. On the sides, not directly on the leaves if possible. All right, and this is a 3-minute steeping. So what happens as a farmer when you're doing this tea? And let's say you get it to the oven and you brew it, not brew it, you bake it too hot. Or you bake it too long. What's the end result? You're going to get 2 different end results. If you bake it too hot, you're going to have bitterness. Bitterness is not a good word when it comes to green tea. We don't want to hear the word bitterness. We don't want to taste bitterness. And there's no need to. This proves to you that there's no need to. The teas in here prove to you no need to hear the word bitterness. Bitterness is a mistake, or it's a statement about the quality of the tea. So that's the first thing. If you bake it too hot at that last step, you also get a brittleness to the leaves. Brittleness is not good either, because as you're transporting the leaves fall apart. And so what you have is tea dust. And tea dust concentrates the flavors. And the end result of that is usually also bitterness. So in both cases, but for different reasons, you end up with bitterness. That's not a good place to end up with green tea. So these are the things that the farmers have to be aware of. So you might be thinking to yourself, okay, I hear you talk about cliff teas and 30 steps or so. This sounds like it maybe has 5, 6, 7, or 8 steps. So therefore, because my math is really good, 8 is fewer than 30. This is true. Therefore, this must be much easier to make than the cliff teas. Easier is a relative term, isn't it? It's relative because you have 8 steps in a 24-hour period versus the 30 steps over a 3-month period. Both are hard to control. And if you make a mistake in any one of these 8 steps, it's harder to recover. All right, your timer's gone off. You separate the tea water from the tea leaves. You do it rhythmically. And yours should look something like this. So it's got a tinge of green, a little hint of yellowishness in it. See a few trichomes, not as many as we've seen before, but they're there. And then enter the quality arena and talk to me about this, because you've had 3 straight weeks. And remembering, one of the specialities of Sophie's is the fact we give you context and we give you scope. And that's what you get when you compare these 3 teas. They are so different. And yet they're all green tea. And if you are a casual drinker, you may not detect the difference at first. None of you are casual drinkers. You're serious drinkers. So you detect differences right away. And actually, Kathy detected the difference right away because she mentioned that fruity flavor. And that was not an opening comment for either Green Light or Tapestry. So this is definitely different. So while you're thinking about this, the farmer also in this same, not in this particular patch, but in a neighboring patch, and by neighboring, I mean within a half a mile of where this patch is, actually has some older trees that he produces fully raw black from. So this farmer has experience across the styles, because occasionally he'll also make red. So this is one of the more accomplished farmers that we know. Yes.
The tea water has, Rob shares, the tea water has a scent of round umami that is gently sweet.
Great comment. Rob indicates the tea water itself has a hint of umami with sweetness, gentle sweetness. And I love this comment because there is a relationship. And until a chef here pointed it out to me, I hadn't really thought about it, a relationship between umami and sweetness. and you picked up both on this. And that, by the way, is one of the reasons right away that you should be guessing this might be from Yunnan. Because you don't usually get that fruity sweet in green tea off the bat, because both of you, Kathy and Rob, made this comment off the bat of a hint of sweetness or fruitiness. Very reminiscent of what you get from Yunnan. Those leaves are bigger. They have that, from that terroir, they have that type of flavor. Yes.
Rob adds, Sue comments that the taste makes her think of sushi, especially the rice and the seaweed, like a sushi.
Oh, very interesting. So Sue indicates that this makes her think of sushi, like a sushi roll with seaweed and rice. I really like this because that does characterize, again, that umami-ness. And usually the rice used in good sushi does give you just that subtle hint of sweetness as well. Great comment.
Jen asked whether there are other green teas in the shop that are from Yunnan.
So the question arises, are there other green teas from Yunnan? How about green javelin? A very distinctive green tea.
Jonathan shares there's a similar viscosity to this tea as with tapestry, similar to tapestry, but not the same thickness left in the mouth. Is that an L-theanine thing, perhaps?
Great question. So Jonathan goes back to the subject of viscosity and says there is definitely viscosity with this, but not the same quality or density of viscosity as tapestry. And is that related to L-theanine? And no, I think again it would be related to the pectin that is in both plants. And the fact that you've gotten sweet and fruity indicates more pectin, leaf pectin is what I'm referring to, in satisfaction. And remembering that the leaves are larger than the tapestry and the green light leaves, you would expect a little bit more of that pectin to be in.
Rob observes there's a kind of a toasty aftertaste to this tea. Not really like burnt rice, but moving in that direction.
Okay, so Rob detects a hint of toastiness, not burnt rice, but moving in that direction. So what that would indicate to me, I have to think about this a minute. In fact, let me take another sip because that's interesting. I don't quite reach that. And maybe this is a degree thing. If there is any, and I like the fact you started out with toastiness. I think what I'm having a hard time with is burnt rice. Toastiness, I get. Burnt rice, it doesn't reach burnt rice to me. I do get the toastiness, but again, we're all individually different genomically. So we're going to taste things a little differently. So it's not an out of bounds comment at all. It's just my perception is I get the slightest hints of toastiness and it stops there.
Rob follows up that it's kind of a feeling on his tongue.
Oh, a feeling on the tongue. That's interesting. Wow. Do this again. This is elusive to me. Elusive again to me doesn't mean it's not right, because all of you, week by week, have proven how good you are. It's just, I'm having a hard time doing anything beyond toasty. I can do toasty on this. And I definitely understand that feeling. But good comment anyway. It is a good comment. All right. So during these last 3 weeks, you've had a chance to go through 3 very different green teas. And your ability to comment on these and your ability to distinguish between them reflects on the fact that you have scope and reflects on the fact that you understand what you're tasting. And so I congratulate all of you for detecting these subtleties and being able to talk about them in a very conscious, open way. In China, they would love you all. You go into a tea shop and say, yeah, I want the green tea that's slight hints of fruit, slight hints of sweetness. Give me some umami to that. And right away, you give the tea shop owner a sense of where you want to go. And they may not pick this exact tea, but they'll pick something like this. Yes.
Peter shares subjective comment on energetics. Some teas like Gossamer or Silver Needle feel like they drop down centrally inside and spread out. Well, this feels like it's more ethereal, and I detect it in the upper half of the body and in my head.
Oh, so interesting. This is a comment about energetics from Peter. Love this comment. So for him, it's not grounding. It's not grounding for me either. And I am so surprised, though, that you ended up at the same place that I did, because I actually do have upper body energetics from this. And contrary to what green tea normally leaves me with, I've got a warming energetic. I'm actually quite warm in the upper body. And I have a theory about that. And my theory is because this is from old to ancient tree leaves. And that age seems to be more important than style, as it turns out. And I think when you get the younger leaves, in general, you get more of the standard feeling, oh, produced in a green tea way, it's cooling. This is not cooling to me. This is warming, and it's upper body from almost the top of the shoulders through the throat. Great perceptive catch, Peter. Yes.
Jen observes this tea is quite drying on the tongue as I make my way through the cup.
Yes. So Jennifer talks about the drying on the tongue. Yes, it's almost like a stacked drying. The first sip, yeah, there's drying certain parts of the tongue. Second sip, oh, the initial drying is not going away. In fact, it's getting stronger. And as you drink through this, and by the way, I don't know about you, but I'm drinking through this pretty quickly. You're getting the stink of this. And, you know, I am 2/3 of the way through, and I got a ton of dryness on my tongue. Great catch on that energetic. Yes.
Rob says, I had a great energetic response with tapestry and green light, whereas with satisfaction, I'm more neutral.
Love this comment. So Rob had great energetics or energetic response on tapestry and green light. This one is more neutral. And I love this comment because we're all different in terms of how we're going to appreciate things. And I knew some people might have a stronger energetic, particularly on tapestry, because I get that tapestry is a comprehensive and deep type of energetic. I don't know what I have more energetic on, but I get I get where you're going with this, and it's great comment. All right. See how I'm doing. Oh, I'm doing okay, kind of. Yes.
Question from Jen, what aspects led you to name the tea Satisfaction?
Oh, so the question comes up, why in the world did I call it satisfaction? One of the reasons is by the time I finish a cup, I just feel relaxed. I feel like for a green tea, it's left me in just a really calm place. Not a grounded place, but a calm place. And so I just feel there's just that sense of satisfaction. It's not overly stimulating, it isn't underly stimulating. It just, for me, perfect. All right. Great commentary, great reflections. I love how perceptive everybody is. And I really love the fact that you can be perceptive in different ways than I am. And unafraid to say so, and you're doing it in the right way. Because like I said, I could easily take all of you to China, take you into a tea shop, and every tea shop owner would understand what each of you is saying and would be able to home in on a tea that would satisfy these type of commentaries. So you guys are incredible. Yes.
Rob shares, hey, we haven't talked about food pairings in a while, but I have to say this tea is a lovely counterpoint, a great counterpoint to steel cut oat orange.
I kind of
Breakfast
like
time.
this, huh?
Breakfast time then.
Breakfast time, yeah. No, I kind of like this pairing. Steel cut oatmeal and satisfaction. Yeah, what a great way to start the morning. You know, Quakers ought to come to us and do a deal with us. Satisfaction oatmeal. At any rate, great commentary. Thank you for being so perceptive. Thank you for being so engaged. We're going to be engaged in something else next week. We start a series of raw black, and we're going to start on the water, cascade. And then we're going to reach up into the numinous reaches of the forest with Yunnan. And then we're going to end in the primordial forest. You are on a journey in this next step. As usual, you guys are great. Your responsibility this week, stay healthy. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye now.
Bye.